So welcome to session 4 of SquiggleDAO Curated Trades. We are covering lots of different trades in this session, so we are calling this one the Squiggle Stravaganza. First, let's do a quick recap of what we've seen so far. Session 1 was expanding von Mises' work defining perfect and full spectrums, and we introduced double, triples, and rainbows. Session 2 was a deep dive on fuzzies, and session 3 was all about monochromes and rainbows. Now, let's get into session 4. So we've already seen this slide before, and it's the one we've used to understand the segments in a squiggle. Segments is the length of a squiggle, defines the length of the squiggle. They go from 12 to 20, and squiggles with 12 segments are shorter and they look really clean, and those with 20 segments are longer and they look much more complex and interesting. But what we haven't mentioned is that squiggles with 20 segments are pretty rare. Every segment value, so 12 segments, 13 segments, 14 segments, so on and so forth, has around 1200 squiggles, with the exception of 20 segments. So as you can see, there are 1214 squiggles with 12 segments. There are 1263 squiggles with 13 segments, and that's true for every segment value, with the exception happening when we get to the longest squiggles, those with 20 segments, that there are only 32, and we call them XLs. Also, what we like about this trait is a trait that is visually recognizable. We can identify these extra long squiggles, and it's already searchable not only in SquiggleDAO.com, but also in all the platforms. You can filter by 20 segments on Rblocks, OpenSea, etc., and find these 32 pieces. Now, another metadata attribute of squiggles, it's the height. Squiggles can have a height of 3 or 4. And what's interesting here is that the vast majority of squiggles are height 3, and just 44 so far are height 4. And we've tried and we've checked different examples, but we could not visually see the difference. So in this case, as the difference between XLs and these particular squiggles is that in this case, it's just a pure metadata rarity and more of a curiosity. Of course, these squiggles are going to rank super high in any rarity ranking, but we prefer rarities that are visually identifiable and aesthetically appealing, such as XLs, doubles, triples, rainbows, etc. In any case, we call them tolls and we also track them. So we have 32 XLs, those with 20 segments, and 44 tolls, those with height 4. Now, as you probably know, and we've mentioned many times, von Mises defined perfect and full spectrums. Perfect spectrums are squiggles with exactly 256 color hues. Hence, they are displaying each of the 256 possible colors exactly once. And full spectrums are those squiggles within 1% of perfect. And we've seen many collectors looking for squiggles that are as close to a perfect as possible, but without trying to avoid paying the premium for a perfect or a full spectrum. That's why we checked for squiggles that are within 2% of perfect. So instead of within 1%, which would be a full spectrum, we are looking for squiggles that are super close, but outside the full spectrum definition, within 2%. And we found 34. We call them 2% or 2% fulls. And here we're including fuzzies. That's a difference to perfect and fulls, where fuzzies are filtered out. Actually, here we are including everything that falls within 2% of perfect. So being fuzzy or squiggles of any type. And as there are not that many, just 34, and these are already targeted, so we've seen these pieces trading at a premium already, we check for squiggles that are within 3% of perfect. We found another 15, and still we were not finding that many, so we check for those within 5% of perfect. And there are 92. Okay, so far we have XLs, tolls, and 2, 3, 5%. And now we want to cover, we're going to finish covering a few interesting things. We're going to cover digits, rips, and aesthetics. And the first one is digits, and is that some squiggles carry a premium due to their number, to their ID number. And so far the premium have only been for the very low digits, but we think that in the future we might see premiums for higher digits as well. For example, round numbers, cool digits. Also worth remembering that Snowflow did a giveaway to squiggle holders of round numbers. If I recall correctly, it was the round thousands. And here we want to emphasize that these traits have been elevated by the community and are already known. And we are not trying to define them or trying to take any credit for them. We just want to highlight and celebrate these ones. Okay, so let's start with single digits. Single digits are those that go from 0 to 9. Floor for single digits is 74 ETH. That's number 8. And this trade super very infrequently, but we've seen a few sales above 20 ETH and one sale for 40 ETH already. That was number 6 that went to Punk 6529. So they are already trading at a hefty premium. Now, double digits, these go from 10 to 99, and current floor for a double digit is 99 ETH, also super illiquid. But as you can see, the premium, the community is already giving a premium to these pieces. And then we have day zeros. They go from 0 to 541, to Squiggle 541, and those were the Squiggles minted before midnight UTC, the day Squiggles were launched. That was November 27th, 2020. And a good trivia question that I always like to mention is that day zeros end in a Squiggle number 541, but the total amount of day zeros is 542, as we are including a Squiggle number 0, that's Snowfrost proof mint. Some that might carry a premium or that are carrying a premium are first mints for each Squiggle type. And something interesting is that they were not always super early. As an example, the first vault was number 20, first pipe was number 74, first hyper was number 95. So almost 100 Squiggles minted before we saw a hyper. And then consecutive mints. This could be either the case of having a bundle of consecutive IDs, or the extreme case that happened to none other than Bomb Mises, who minted 2 consecutive hypers. And the hypers that he minted were Squiggles 1770 and 1771. Pretty crazy. Now, also we would like to share with you a deep dive we've done on RIPs. And yes, we've gone over all the RIPs one by one. And we think that RIPs are pretty interesting, not only for being Snowfrost's favorite type, but also because they are the most nuanced type and can result in very interesting pieces. In RIPs, we can find the Squiggles that are completely blacked out, like this one. Pretty interesting. If you ask me, that this is a Squiggles, like all are very colorful, and suddenly you can find a almost blacked out piece. There are also grayed out pieces, like this one. And this particular one is Snowfrost's favorite amongst the whole collection. So there you go. Also, we can find ghosts. Those are white ribs where practically the only color we can see is the visible between the ribs. And we can also find harmonics. Those are the Squiggles where the rib color exactly matches one of the preset background colors. So the Squiggle merges perfectly with the background. And here, again, we want to remind and mention again that we are just highlighting some cool pieces, and some of them have already been elevated by the community, such as ghosts or harmonics. We are not trying to get any credit for this. We are not just celebrating these pieces. In fact, we want to give credit to Jusa, who did a great job explaining harmonics in Adeka Gallery, and we'll share the link to it. And we would like to end highlighting some cool aesthetics. Again, some of these were championed by the community, so we are just sharing them because we love them. So Squiggles can be letters, they can be M's or N's. They can also have animal shapes, like the Loch Ness monsters or worms. Also, Squiggles can be similar to some price charts we are pretty familiar with. Sometimes the price goes up only, but a lot of other times is down only. Also, we might have seen before the classical shitcoin mountain, where there is a pump and it's all happiness and rainbows, but it always ends in tears. And finally, we have the optimistic Squiggle, one of my favorites, where everything ends in green and up and to the right. Okay, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the last session of SquiggleDAO Curated Trades, session number 5. Thanks a lot.